Okay, welcome to our new share, Tanya Inside Out, 5785 at G4, and we're chapter 1. So just as a heads up, just want to make to explain the difference between a tree and a vegetable. Okay? There's two ways. This is just as a heads up for the whole class. I said this on the original Tanya Inside Out share, but it's very important. There's what's called inspiration. I don't even know the word for that in Hebrew. Yeah, inspiration and yediyah. And it can be compared. They can be compared to a vegetable and a tree. Okay, so the way a vegetable works is you throw the seed in the ground, and the cucumber pops up. And then you eat the vegetable, and then you have to plant a new seed. Okay? A tree is the opposite of that. A tree, you plant the tree, it takes a little longer for it to grow, but then eventually the tree will put out pyrus.
And the trees.
And the tree, and exactly, and it can bear endless pyrus and endless trees, etc. So, inspiration is compared to the vegetable, and yediyah is compared to the tree. And in my mind, the idea of inspiration is a little bit of a kind of we're all looking for inspiration, yeah. But that's kind of red herring. What we should really be looking for is yediyah. Yeah, when you hear an idea, when you sit by a Labour Dicker mensch who has koyach hadibor, and he gives you inspiration, it's almost gone immediately. You know, if it lingers for half an hour, yeah, that's impressive. So what's the point of that? Yeah. Whereas yediyah, when you get ideas clear, like real ideas, mamash crystal clear ideas in Yane Panemius, then they mamash become trees. And you become the source of inspiration for other people. You become your own source of inspiration, and you become a source of inspiration for other people. So that's really what we're doing. This is what the goal is to give to you trees.
So inspiration is temporary, you're saying?
Yeah, it comes and goes. Whereas yediyah means the idea becomes a part of you.
You become now the ground.
So to speak, it's a good analogy. That's a great analogy. And then things will grow from you. That's called Chidushei Torah. Yeah, but there's no one that can give you yediyah except for one person in the whole world. You. Inspiration, a lot of people can give you inspiration. But the only one who can be your idea, the idea, who can cause the idea to fall into your das, is you.
Is it inspiration like the plowing of the fields, and then you start going into it? You have to get inspired to do something. You have to meet someone who's going to say, wow, I could be bigger, I could be better. And now you got to do the work.
Okay, so you could say like that. You could say like that. But the point is, it's very secondary. The goal is to be your own source of inspiration. The goal is not to have to turn to other people and other things outside of you to get inspired. The goal is to be inspired. That's by understanding these ideas, the tachlis of berirus mamash, understanding things clear, so you could see the idea in a completely different context, and you would immediately recognize the idea. Or someone could wake you up in the middle of the night, mamash. You open up, and the idea just rolls off your tongue like mamash clean. Yeah, that's how it needs to be. So that's what we're trying to do. So I can't do that for you. But we're gonna try and give the ideas. What would be a good idea basically is these sheets to turn this into something. This is what the discussion we have to have bichlal, because the teacher can, in a sense, help a little bit with yediyah, especially nowadays with things like WhatsApp and constant access to the Talmudim and stuff. So I'm going to do my best to help. But at the end of the day, you have to make a decision to take these ideas yourself and to get them clear. Okay, so that was just an introduction. The Tanya begins by introducing us. This is in chapter 1, introducing us to the Tzadik, the Beinoni, and the Rasha. And he immediately, the first hanacha that he makes is that they tell you that you have to think of yourself as a Rasha. And he says if you see yourself as a Rasha, you won't be able to serve Hashem b'simcha u'tiv levav. So that is the foundation of all of Avodas Hashem. Simcha v'tuv levav. There is no Avodas Hashem without simcha. So then you have to define what simcha is. Simcha is not an emotion, according to how I've understood it. It's funny actually. There's only two emotions. There's only Av and Yira. Everything else, every other emotion is a combination of them. But things like simcha and pleasure, anger, atzvus, depression, they're not called emotions in the Lashon of Tanya. Yeah, we'll explain that everything is much more sophisticated than just grouping everything as emotions. Simcha is the prerequisite for emotions. Simcha is an availability to emotion. Simcha is a clear expression, or the ability to express emotion, like a clean tube. Yeah.
If you're required to do something, can it be only an emotion, or it has to be a substance? Like if you're required to love, it has to be an action. Also, you're required to do stuff in simcha, to live up. So it has to be an action, not just an emotion.
So love. Well, there's love, and then there's the behavior that love motivates. So love isn't behavior. Love is a hagosha. It's a midah, and it becomes expressed in thought or speech or action. But simcha is different.
How could we be commanded that Hashem b'chol avavcha?
Like, I mean, that's being choike into.
You have to do something for that.
Yeah, okay, so you can affect your emotions through pa'ulas. Vadai. How else do you do anything? Yeah, which is your access to your emotions is basically through your seichel. But emotion is not behavior. Emotion motivates behavior. Emotion is the energy that motivates thought, speech, or action. Okay, but the prerequisite for emotion is simcha. And that's why atzvus is the opposite of simcha. But simcha has another opposite. And atzvus has another opposite. So you have like a triangle. I've got it here. Yeah, I have it here. You have a triangle. I'll show you in a minute. You have the opposite of simcha. Yeah? If I was just saying to you what's the opposite of simcha, you'd say atzvus, yeah? Depression. So that's down here. Simcha's up here. Atzvus is down here. You know what's up here? Avelus. The opposite of simcha is atzvus.
Tzar. From tzar.
Atzvus is depression. It means you're depressed. Person's down, feels down,
it's
sad.
Not the same as tzar.
No, tsar is an actual. If I pinch you, that's tsar. That's a sensation. Yeah, but depression. Lefi the Tanya, again, everyone has different definitions then. Lefi the Masorah that I received from my Rebbe in the Tanya, depression is not an emotion, it's an inability to have emotion. It's an emptiness of emotion. It's actually linked to laziness. That's why atzvus and atzlus are connected, and they're bechinas offer. It's the inyan of heaviness. It's not an emotion. It's an inability to have an emotion. For either laziness could be you're too lazy to experience an emotion, or it's too much energy to experience the emotion. What was it I learned yesterday? Or it's the default. The default position of a human being is not particularly emotional. Yeah, you have to. It's the chiddush, more of a chiddush of a person who is emotional, and you have to work at. Not that there aren't emotional people, but anyway, that's a side point. So you've got simcha and avelus that are opposites, but you also have atzvus, which is the opposite of both simcha and avelus. Avelus and simcha, your heart is alive. Yeah, simcha, your heart is alive from the right side, which means it feels geschmack. Yeah, avelus, your heart is alive, but from the left side, and it hurts. Avelus is a Tisha B'Av is a very emotional day. Yeah, avelus, you see people who are Miss Abel, yeah, their mamash, their heart is pumping.
It's not depression.
It's bichlal, not depression. Depression, the guy's dead. the guy, you just want to get away from that guy because he's like bringing down your energy. But you can have huge Avelis. Avelis can motivate you to do amazing things. We should not know of it, but that's so. The first thing that the Tanya establishes is that there is no avodas Hashem without simcha, which means without energy. If there's no free flow of energy, you might as well just pack up and go home. There's no avodas Hashem. Yeah, that's the first thing he says. Mamash, the first thing he says. He says, "Im yiyeh ba'einav karasha." If he thinks of himself as a rush, his heart's going to feel bad. He's going to fall into atzvus. He's not going to be able to serve Hashem b'simcha v'tuv leivav. And then, the game didn't begin. So that's really the foundation of Sefer Tanya, is simcha and tuv leivav. And we have, simcha is not simcha is not so much a gift, it's more something you acquire. It's something you can acquire. Simcha is primarily achieved or acquired through intelligent thinking. You don't. It's not people.
It is an action.
It's not an action. To get to it, you need to go through an action. You can't do anything with that. The only thing you actually have shlita over is malchus, is your machshava dibur ma'aser. That's the only thing you have shlita over. So that's the key to everything.
We don't really have power from ourselves. It's like
it's complicated. We'll please God over time we'll get the picture clear, but it's complicated how it works. So that's the first thing that the Tanya says. Now the Tanya brings us the concept of the tzaddik, the Beinoni, and the Rasha. And the Pashat thing you would think is that tzaddik, he doesn't know. He does know. He's breaking us down at this point, yeah? And he's trying to say to us, listen, you really don't know what's flying. Okay, that is the prerequisite for learning something new, is being prepared to accept that what you've known until now might not be correct. You don't have to say it's incorrect, but you have to be open. That's not a Pashat thing. That's not a Pasha thing at all. To be able to even change one millimeter of stuff that you already know, that takes a lot of courage. It really does. So the Rebbe breaks us down. He asks a bunch of questions. We're not going to get into the questions. To basically show you that you don't know what a tzaddik and Beinoni. Maybe you know what a Rasha is. Maybe you don't know what a tzaddik and a Beinoni is. And he brings a few different rayas. We'll see. But this is a very important thing he says here. So after he says we've got the five chalukim, we've got tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ra'lo, rasha v'tovlo, rasha v'ra'lo, and a Beinoni. He says Perush b'Gemara. First he explains what the Gemara says, and then he says Uvrei Mehemna Parsha Mishpatim Perush. He brings the Uvrei Mehemna, which is Mamash Inyan Diyola. We're standing on the eve of the Hilul of Rabbi Shimon of Lag BaOmer. Which is really the celebration of Pnimius HaTorah, and this is just this is what we're going to see here, how the Rebbe encoded into these few words. You would never know unless you have the Messiah of this Sefer, is the keys to understanding the difference between Pnimius HaTorah and Nigla. They don't call Nigla Chetzonius HaTorah. I've never seen that officially. I don't know if you could say. I've never seen that officially. Yeah, so we'll call it Nigla, but we're not going to call it Nista. We're going to call it Panemius, because you'll see why that will help us understand it. So, what is the difference between Pnimius HaTorah and Nigla? What's the difference? What is the mamash the difference? And the two documents, so to speak, that although the Gemara does contain everything, and maybe also the Zohar, I don't know. But the Pashat B'Shat of the Gemara is that it's dealing with Nigla, and we're working out halacha. I know. There's a lot of Agadata and a lot of Pnimius, maybe all of Pnimius, but the Pashat Avoda of Talmud Bavli especially is Nigla. So the definition of these five different madregas, Tzadik V'Tovlo down to Rasha V'Ra'loi, is Tzadik v'Tovlo, Tzadik Gamor, Tzadik Ra'lo, Tzadik Sheina Gamor. The Tzadik who has Tov, he's a Tzadik Gamor, which means his behavior is fixed. His behavior is perfect, yeah? It's big Tzadik. Tzadik v'ra'aloi, he's not a tzadik gamor, meaning his behavior is not absolutely perfect, which is probably what you'd think. And then you would think that a Beinoini, a middle guy, is like 50-50. Yeah, half Averas, half mitzvahs. Okay, and then a Rasha v'ra'aloi is like a majority Averas, and a Rasha v'ra'aloi is kulu Avera, no mitzvah. That's how you would think. Yeah, and that's kind of how the Gemara paints it. Rasha v'tovlo. A Rasha v'tovlo would be that he has majority Averas. Yeah, and a Rasha v'ra'aloi would be he has no zchuyos. He has only Averas. That's how you would think, yeah?
Does this have anything to do with Tzadik V'ra'aloi Rasha V'tovlo? Like the...
Yeah, 100%. It's
Yeah,
very
this
much
is the
aligned.
question.
Very much aligned. So the Rebbe's going to only really... The Rebbe tells us what a tzaddik is in chapter 10. We're in chapter 1 right now. The Rebbe tells us what a tzaddik is in chapter 10, what a Rasha is in chapter 11, and then spends 4 chapters explaining, or more you could say maybe, explain what a Beinoini is. So there's a lot of pieces that we're going to have to put into the puzzle, and I'm going to try and give over. I know we're going quickly, but again, like I said, this is really going to be worth nothing unless you actually, if you listen to the show again, we'll put it online, or if you get the notes or whatever it is, but maybe we'll walk over a few crumbs or something. So the Gemara says that the tzaddik v'tovloi is a tzaddik gamor, and tzaddik v'ra'aloi is a tzaddik she'eino gamor. A din on behavior. Yeah? What does the Raya Mehemna say? The Raya Mehemna, which is the Zohar Kodesh, says in Parshas Mishpatim, tzaddik v'ra'aloi shehara sheboi kafuf l'tov. Finished. That the Ra that's in him is kafuf, is subjugated, is dominated by the Tov. If we get this clear, we've understood the chiluk between Pnimius HaTorah and everything else, which is what Rabbi Shimon brought to the world, and you'll see it b'shitas Rabbi Shimon throughout Kol Torah Kuloi, that the Gemara is saying a din on behavior. How good is his behavior? He's 100%, yeah, then he's a tzaddik gamor. What's behavior? Behavior is levushim. Behavior in Lashon Tanya and Lashon Pnimius is levushim, yeah? Garments. We have thought, speech and action. What's the din of a garment? There's lots of things. We'll talk about it in detail later on as well, Hashem. Din of a garment is it's not you, and it's on the outside. And in fact, the ikar chiluk between an animal and a human being, one of the ikar chilukim is animals don't wear clothes, and we do. Animals' clothes are built in. Yeah, they have fur, they have scales, whatever it is, yeah? We put on clothes. We have access to our clothes, which means we have access to our behavior. An animal doesn't have access to his behavior. An animal is his behavior. That's why it's called a behemoth. Bahma. In it is what it is. Behemoth. Yeah, Bahma. What it is what it is. An animal cannot change its behavior. A lion is a lion. A tiger is a tiger. A cow is a cow. A tiger can't decide to become vegetarian. A tiger could be trained, but only by a human being. A tiger can't take achrayas for its own training. Whereas we, using our seichel, can take achrayas for our own training. That's live life.
Animals don't have bechira?
No. No. They have instinct. They have preference. They can choose between eating that plate of food or that plate of food. But well, then we have to learn what bechira is. But that's a whole different thing. We'll get there as well, Hashem. So behavior is chetzoni. Behavior is something that you have access to. I can take my clothes off and I can put on your clothes. I could wear false garments. I could dress up as a surf bum. Yeah, that's not who I am. Or I could dress up as a king. That's not who I am. Yeah, garments are. You can steal someone's garments. Yeah, you can misappropriate someone's garments. Garments are the point that we're trying to bring out here is that garments are chetzoni to you. They're external. Okay, so what's you? Well, that's a complicated question. But in the Bechina we're talking about right now, we're just talking about how good you are. Your goodness and your behavior are two separate things. Hopefully, if you're good, yeah, your behavior will express that goodness.
Is the etzem and shame we're saying?
Yeah, everything's always etzem and shame.
The
Everything.
levushim are going to be shame. compared to who you are, always going to be that relationship.
Absolutely. So the levush should express who you are, but you can have an angry man, like Moshe. It said Moshe was a Ritzeach when the Melech, you remember that famous story from the Medrash? They brought the picture of Moshe to the Melech, and he said, this man isn't a tzaddik, he's a big Russia. He's mamash a Ritzeach. Yeah? He had huge energy. Yeah.
So double the Melech, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. They were oimed on their midas. Yeah. They although they had a propensity to anger or to whatever it is. Yeah. They were able to be sholet on it. So levushim is an amazing idea, meaning that just because you're an angry man, yeah, that doesn't mean you have to behave in an angry way. You don't even have to have angry thoughts. You can even be sholet over that. Isn't that amazing? That puts everything on your shoulders. You can't get away with saying, well, that's just, I'm Irish, I get angry. Yeah? You're like, that's the words of a behemoth. You say, I'm Irish, I have a propensity to anger, but I'm a human being, so I can overcome that in every situation. Like we said, it's just a question of price. Whenever you're about to do something, you feel that you're compulsed. I've said this many times, bless you. When you're compulsed to do something, when you have a compulsion to do something, you feel that there's no option. Someone offers you $1,000, whatever your price, maybe it might be a little bit more, or could be a little bit less. No matter how difficult this sign is for you, you will be able to overcome it. Someone offers you $10,000, you're about to, this guy's done whatever he's done to you, you're mamish fuming, and you're just about to scream at him, and there's nothing, no one can calm you down, no one could, and a guy offers you $10,000 to shut up and sit down and whatever, done. There's always a price. You always remember that.
So that's the action and the thought that turns it into a deed. Basically, it's instead of the default thoughts, you have to shape them.
The thing is, it's not default thoughts. The thoughts are already, when it turns into thought, it's already become much more than the emotion. Emotion doesn't have letters. Emotion is beyond oisius. Oisius begin in machshavas. Okay? So the Gemara is concerned with the behavior. The Zohar Kodesh is concerned with the mensch. That's the chiluk between Nigla and Pnimius HaTorah. Being connected to the outer levels of the Torah and being connected to Torah Chasidus. Torah Rashbi. What was the whole story? We said this, but what was the whole story that caused what was Rashbi's response that caused the whole his galgalus, if you want to say it, of the story of the cave and went to Beis Medrash and went to the cave and 12 years in the cave and then with blood.
The Romans did something for us.
Yeah. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon were sitting there, and Rabbi Yehuda said, look how gavoldik the maisim of this ummah are. They made bridges, bathhouses, shvachos, whatever. Yeah. Rabbi Yossi shosok. He didn't say anything. That, by the way, means that his opinion was that not that he didn't know, that he realised that it's a shiluv of the two. Rabbi Yehuda's malchus, which is behaviour, which is chitzonius. Rabbi Yehuda said, look how gavoldik their actions are. Rabbi Yossi was shosok, didn't say anything. Rabbi Shimon said, no, they're rishoyim. That everything they did was the tzorich atzmam. It was all for their own purposes. They made bathhouses to have a geschmack, and the shvachos for znus, and the bridges for meches, for chule, So what was Rabbi Shimon connected to, and what was Rabbi Yehuda looking at? Rabbi Yehuda was looking at the chitzonius, that they made bathhouses, bridges, and shuks. Givoldik. And Rabbi Shimon was like, I don't care what they made. I don't care what they did. They were shoyim. Everything was the tzorich atzmam. What's the reality? The reality is it's a shilv of the two. It's a machlokas tanoim. It's not that Rabbi Shimon was right. It's a shilv of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. Is Rabbi Yossi. And what's more important? What's more important is the Meisim. That comes first. Meisim comes first. As we said by my Matan Torah, how it all flipped round. Like, for example, you have all the Kavanas in the world, yeah? And not only do you have all the Kavanas of the world by Kriya Shema, you actually are mispashet from your goof, and you're nichlal into Achdus Hashem for a few minutes, then you come back, yeah? But you didn't actually manage to say the 6 words of Shema. No mitzvah took place. Or someone's putting on Pasal Tefillin with Kavanas, Hoiche Kavanas Mamash, yeah? And they're Pasal Tefillin, he caused the kilkul. He said Brachas Levatola, yeah? As opposed to, you put on kosher tefillin and you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad with basic, well, you need basic Kavana, Kvaras Malchus Shemaim, Perish Amilim, yeah? You are Makayim Mitzvahs Kriya Shema, you are Makayim Mitzvahs Tefillin. So what comes first, yeah, is the Maisa Mitzvah, but it has to be filled with Kavanas Mitzvah, yeah? So Reb Shimon was saying, no, I don't care about the Maisa Bichlal. And you see, that's why he holds his famous Machlokas in Shabbos with, is it Rebbe Eliezer? Davar She'enim Miskaven. That Rabbi Shimon holds that a Davar She'enim Miskaven is Pata. Because if you didn't have the intention for it, then that's his famous halakha. It's all Lefi Shitasai.
Yeah, mitzvot don't need kavanah for halacha.
Yeah, so this is the point. But we know that Kavanah is the Gadfir. They bring up the mitzvah, yeah? Again, whatever that means. But we know that we need both, the Maisa. Yeah, we know that we need both. A mitzvah without Kavanah is like a goof without a neshama. So we need both. Yeah? But a neshama without a goof is like, there's nothing. But a goof without a neshama, at least you've got something now to work with. Yeah? So the Rai Mehemna, the Panemius Torah, is saying the concept of Tzaddik V'Ra'aloi is that he's good, and that there's Ra to him, but the Ra is subjugated to the good. That's a din on who he is, not on what he does. And in those few lines, the Alter Rebbe just explained to us, or at least he didn't explain it to us, but he gave us a simon that when we know it, we'll be able to chazar the Inyan when we read those few lines.
Could you have a din in something you didn't do?
No, I mean exactly. The point is that
how is he on a different level than a tzaddik?
How's who on a different level?
If his bad is controlled by the good, so he didn't actually do any bad. He just has.
But he's saying his good is his bad is controlled by his good, meaning he only does good. Yeah, we're not. There's a lot of questions to ask on that. Yeah, but right now the point is that Alpi the Rai Mehemna, the definition of tzaddik v'ra'aloi is a man whose good is subjugating his evil. We don't even know what good and evil is right now, yeah? We'll say that in a minute, B'ezrat Hashem. By the Gemara, the tzaddik v'toivloi is a tzaddik gamor, means he only does good. And the tzaddik v'ra'aloi is a tzaddik she'einu gamor, which means he also does a little bit of bad, just a little bit of bad, yeah? So we're talking, that is the chiluk between Panemius Torah and Nigla. That's mamash the difference.
Again, Panemius is that tzaddik v'toivloi is where he's.
We didn't say the Panemius. All we said was that the definition of tzaddik v'ra'aloi is that the toiv is shoyle over the ra. We don't know what that means, but we know that it's a din on the person, as opposed to the tzaddik gamor. You need to see it in context.
He has no bad.
Not that he has no bad. It doesn't really matter. It's not the question of the Gemara. Is that he doesn't do anything bad.
There's a story in the Gemara when one of the guys, his wine went spoiled. So the Chachamim came to him and asked him, "What did you do? If your wine went spoiled,
put it in a gold container.
You have to do something. Yeah. It can't be that you're galecha without an action."
So now we need to define what is good and evil. Yeah, this is worth waking up for this morning. We know the definition of people being in the Shem for long enough. We know the definition. Toiv is Toiv can be translated as selfless, and Ra can be translated as selfish. Again, now we need to those words also need a little bit of explanation. Yeah, the ultimate level of Toiv is when you like Moshe was ish anav Toiv ma'od.
Transparent, is it?
What?
Transparent.
So ish anav ma'od. He was transparent, meaning that he had no sense of self. He was nichlal in the big picture. He was a cog in the machine. Just as a it's a bit of a crass example, but this is a good thing. A good man, he goes into a bathroom, a public bathroom, and he makes a little bit of a mess. He'll wipe it up. If he soils the seat, sorry to talk about this, but if he soils the seat, he'll wipe it up. That's a man who's good, a good man. What about a guy who walks into the bathroom? He sees that it's been messed up. He didn't do that, and he cleans it up for the next person. We all know that's a different madrega of toiv.
It's called a janitor.
What?
That's called a janitor.
In Hebrew, we call it a fire.
But Rachmanos. The word fry means to be free. I'd say that because he's free from his ego. Most Israelis can't understand what that means, bichlal. So that was probably Lashon Hara. But
it's not just Israeli.
You're right. You're right. In fact, maybe ego is much less here than other countries. It's just other things going on. Anyway, that person who cleans up the bathroom, even though he didn't make a mess, he's more good. Why? Because it wasn't something that he did that needs to get fixed up. It was just something that needs to get fixed up. Like if you do something that needs to get fixed up, then fix it up. What are you talking about? I say to my children, a yid, you lend something to a yid, he gives it back to you in better condition than you gave it to him. Lend something to a human being, he'll give it back to you in the same condition he lent it to you. Give something to a behemoth, he'll give it back to you in a worse condition. But don't think giving something back to someone in the condition they gave it to you is a milah. That's just pasha. If you think that's a mile, you have to get back to kindergarten and start working things out again. That's pasha. You should be handing back when you borrow someone's dira. You should be handing it back in a better condition that you found it, within reason, obviously understanding the situation. But that's the machshava. Like I do when I go on camping trips with my kids. When we leave, we always go around, and the game is to pick up. Our trash, that's gone. Now let's clean up the whole area.
Cigarette butts.
Yes, cigarette butts and the broken beer bottles that people left and all that stuff. You know what a strong message that is to your children? I'm taking responsibility for other people's mess. That's a big chiddush. It's just pasha, no? Why would you not do that? Anyway, so toiv means that you don't have the ultimate level of self. The ultimate level of toiv means there is no sense of self. And again, that doesn't mean you're a shmata bichlal. It's the exact opposite thing. Only a selfish person can behave like a shmata. A truly selfless person would say to himself, who am I to not stand up to this man? Who am I to not take control of this situation? That's a truly selfless person. He might not want to.
How do you know when you're supposed to take control of the situation and when you're supposed to...
Okay, that's a good question. I don't know. You have to work that out. But when you realise that that's what a selfless person is. A selfless person is a person who's like, oh, I'm sorry, It's like, no, what you just did was pasha wrong. And I'm going to stand up for what's right, not because of me. Like when your children's like, only a selfish parent spoils their children. That's the epitome of selfishness. Spoiling your children. Spoiling is not in Hebrew. It's lashon mukalkel. That's what it means. It's mufunak. Mufunak's but mukalkel is in English. You use the word spoiled, like spoiled milk. Like who are you to spoil your child? You're here to be mechanech your child, not to be mukalkel your child. You have to be a big chocham, work out when it is that you give, when it is that you don't give.
And spoiling that makes you just feel good in that moment.
Exactly. That's for you. Exactly. That's about me. So only a selfless person has the oimetz, the strength to not spoil a child. But that's the din of selflessness. Selfless just means that this whole thing's just got nothing to do with me. I'm just here to help. I'm just a cog in the machine, and I'm here to help. It doesn't mean that you feel rubbish. It's the exact opposite thing. You feel infinitely important because I'm a part of this infinite cosmic machine. that the Rabbeinu Shalom himself actually cares about, and I'm a cog in that wheel. I've got a part to play. So I'm not irrelevant. I'm absolutely I'm as important as the whole thing. I better pull my weight. That's the inyan of Tov that I've learned from my Rebbe. And that's really the inyan of Tov in Tanya Bechlal. Tov and Ra means, and there's Madregas, is the sense of being nichlal in the bigger picture, and Ra is the sense of being yotzi min haklal. And that's by tangentially the reason why in the Haggadah the definition of Rashi is a yotzi zatzmo min haklal. So l'chayra, the definition of tzaddik is a machnis es atzmo b'soich haklal. So this is, you missed a very important point. I'll say it very quickly. So Chazar, that the Tanya, the first thing the Tanya does after he mentions the 5 madregas of tzaddik and rasha, is he gives you what the Gemara says, and then he gives you what the Raya Mehemna says. Remember? What he's really doing there is defining for you the difference between the nigla of the Torah and the pnimius of the Torah. Nigla, the way of the pshat, the way of the olam haredi bichlal, is to do with the chitzonius. How is your behavior? Yeah? What kind of clothes are you wearing? Which is like what happened in Mitzrayim. What was it in Mitzrayim? The 3 things that we held on to?
The names, the clothing.
Yeah, you remember by Shalal. Yeah, shame, loshen, levush. All chitzonius. Shame is the first one. It's all shame. So the whole thing is shame. So the Gemara is primarily concerned with the din. So the Gemara defines the tzaddik as someone who behaves perfectly, and a tzaddik she'ein gamor is somebody who doesn't behave absolutely perfectly, but behaves very, very well. Whereas the Raya Mehemna defines it as a din on the person himself. And we just said with that was a chazal. What we said, that is
their soul quality
of the mensch. Then you get, let's just say the mensch. Keep it pasha, yeah. Keep the low resolution so we can build up, yeah. But we're talking about who the person is as opposed to what the person does. But we know in truth we need the Gemara and we need the Zohar. You can't have one without the other. Which one's primary? Well, he brought the Gemara first, and then Zohar comes, and that's the inyan. The first is the Maisa, and then is the Kavana. But like we said, a Maisa without a Kavana is like a goof without a neshama. So we need a shiluf. So the Rebbe there, in his signature way, just gives you a whole sefer or a series of svarim in 3 lines, mamash. Unbelievable. This book is like that over and over. I was talking to a guy this morning in my minyan, a big Talmud Chacham and a tzaddik, Wai Davan, and he knows I learn Tanya a lot, and I was saying to him how I've been learning Tanya intensely for like 20 years plus, and I still read through it regularly, and it's like a pella that a human being wrote this book. The payrus that come out when you're holding in the inyanim, and the next time you go through it again, you're like, oh, I've read this line 100 times, and I see what he's saying now. Again and again and again. It's pasha modik. That's my whole goal in being mashpia in Am Yisrael. My whole goal is to get people attached to this sefer, to turn it into their own personal project. I've got all of these projects going on, but the actual goal is to get people actually connected to the pneumius of this sefer. And then I'm like, once that happens, I'm like, done. Okay, enjoy. Go and fix the world. That's how I say it. But to get connected to the pneumius of the sefer is a big avoider, a really big avoider. I'm trying to work out how to cut time out of it, yeah. And I think we're getting somewhere, but that's the goal. That was a side point anyway. So the Rebbe's now just explained the difference between Pnimius HaTorah and Nigla. Okay, now he goes weiter, and he shows you that you've got no idea what the tzaddik is, because Rabbah called himself a Beinoni. Rabbi says, Ka'ana Beinoni, yeah? To Abaye. And the question is, well, a Beinoni can't be 50-50 now. Yeah, because Rabbi was like Pasit Pumi Megirsi, he never stopped learning for 1 second. You can't, there's no way in a million years you could imagine that he was 50% Averas, 50% mitzvahs. No way. Yeah? And then you'll say, well, maybe he was just being an Anav. Yeah, and this is a big klal in Tanya, is no, and being an Anav doesn't mean you lie. Being an Anav means that in a practical level you could take the less complimentary of two options. But if you're a concert level pianist, to say I don't know how to play the piano, that's not a nivas, that's just lying. So Rabbah couldn't have confused himself with a Beinoni unless a Beinoni is not somebody who's 50-50 in his actions. And we're going to see, in fact, that a Beinoni is somebody who's 100% b'shleimus in his behaviour. Thought, speech and action. He never does an Aveira in thought. It's in action or in speech or even in thought. That's a Beinoni. Yeah? But who he is there's room for improvement on who he is, not on how he behaves. Your behaviour is like a...
It's panemius.
What? It's panemius. So the Tanya, like basically, the Tanya says, if you read through the Tanya and with, bravely, like, not scared, yeah? The basic premise of the Tanya is like, what do you mean your behaviour is not correct? What do you mean you're doing something wrong? Or you're saying something wrong? Or you're even thinking something wrong? You're not allowed to do that. Pull yourself together. That's like, we don't say that because we're like, halavai, my behaviour was mamash in line, yeah? But the Tanya's like, really, when you go into the Tanya's like, that's asa. Why are you doing it? Stop. Finished. You need another reason. It's asa. What more reason could you want? Oh, you're going to get ill? Yeah? You think that's more of a reason than it's asa? You're going to lose money? It's going to hurt your relationship with your wife? That's more of a reason than it's asa? That's like the way the Tanya's coming. And so I know that's very stark to hear that, but let's call a spade a spade. But the avoid of the Tanya, like we said, is that the maisim actually are mashpia onto the etzem. The way you change how good you are is there's only one option. It's thought, speech, and action. That's the only way that you can actually impact who you are, is by what you do. And then the who you are is mashpia into the what you do, and that feeds back into the who you are, and then it's an upward spiral, and that's the way Hashem made the world. That's what it means. B'derech horim alichin oisa. What is it? B'derech yeah, that's it. The Rebbeinu says, you want to mamash play the game? You don't want to just sit there like everyone else and be played by the game? Yeah, I'm with you, man. I belong to you. That's ani l'doidi v'doidi li. Like we said before, we can say Elokeinu, Elokai. Yeah? My God. So what does that mean? There's two perushim. I could be like my car or my country. What's the difference? One you own, one you belong to. My car is a detail in my reality. My country, I'm a detail in its reality. So when we say my God, oh my God, what are we saying? Are we saying that I belong to him or he belongs to me? Tzrich Ian. Yeah, the truth is we should be saying I belong to him. He's not my pocket God that I go out into the forest and talk to, yeah? What? Wait. So you mean he's working for you? What do you mean? Why do you mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, he's there with you all the time also.
That's what we just said. Ani l'doidi, and then l'doidi li. You give yourself to Rabbeinu Shalom. You understand that you exist in context of him, and he will become your God. He will bend all of reality to you, mamash. The Mishnah says, no? What's the Mishnah? And you make his ratzon like your ratzon, he'll make your ratzon. You'll mevatel your ratzon to his ratzon, he'll make the ratzon v'cheirim to your ratzon. What's ratzon v'cheirim? Means the whole world. That's the Sitra Achra. Means the whole world will bow to you. Mamash, the whole world will bow to you. The whole world bows to the tzaddik. That's what Rabbi Shimon said. When he said it's Kedai, the whole world, if it's just for me and you, Rabbi Lazar, my son, the whole world is Kedai. Because he was a tzaddik. And he was mamash aligned with Rabbeinu Shloim. How do we go? Okay, so that
the person to the country.
So the first avoida is to see yourself in context of him. I belong to Rabbeinu Shloim, and then you'll see that he'll make himself yours. Yeah, but that's loich patli. That happens ma'elav, but that's not what it's about. I don't want I don't like it's like lahavdil. Yeah, it's like having Don Corleone on your side, lahavdil, like a really powerful version. He can get you what you need, a shidduch, you need a refuah, you need panasa, anything you want, he'll get for you, yeah? We don't care about a bichlal, I just want to serve. If you decided that I don't need a wife to serve you, well then, I don't understand that, yeah? And I don't like that, but, and then you realise that in fact he does want you to have a wife, why? Because it's a mitzvah. You need a wife. Part of your avoider needs a wife. So now you can turn around to Rabbeinu Shalom instead of saying, Hashem, give me a wife. Please send me my shidduch. Is Rabbeinu Shalom, please show me what I need to fix so that you'll send me my wife. There's obviously something that I'm chassa that needs to get worked out. I don't want a wife for me. I just know that I can't be ovid you properly without a wife, without children, without all the chalakim, without panasa, without health, without whatever it is. I can't be over you without all these things. So you're not davening like he's not your pocket God. You're his. You belong to him. And you're saying, really, I want to be over you. I want to serve. Yeah, and I'm really limited because I haven't got panasa and I'm mamash running around the whole time, tearing my hair out. And I v'chule, yeah? That's a din on my God, meaning I belong to you, Rabbeinu Shalom. So, I can't remember exactly how we got there from talking about Rabbah. The pasuk Pumi Megirsa.
So what's the definition of Benoni?
So the Benoni, exactly. That's how we went off. The Benoni is a person. Again, we're going to say this in chapter 12, yeah, which is a long time from now. But the Benoni is a person who acts correctly, including thought and speech and action. Yeah, all his behavior is fixed. 100%. He never does, says, or thinks an Aveira. By the way, when thinks, it doesn't mean that he never has a bad thought. It means that the minute he has a bad thought, he pushes it away with two hats. He's Masir Das. Yeah? He doesn't entertain the thought. Having a bad thought is in fact probably the definition of Benoni. That you act like a tzaddik, but you have bad thoughts. Yeah? That's because you are not completely good. So there's bad thoughts spat up into your consciousness. Now the question becomes, do you entertain the thought as you push the thought away? The Benoni will always push the thought away with two hands. Okay? So that's the mistake that Rabbah made. It was a mistake apparently. Yeah, that he was a tzaddik, but a tzaddik can always think that he's a Benoni. Why? Because his behavior was perfect. And he didn't have any tendencies to like any bad stuff. He didn't have any bad thoughts. And he just thought it's because he's just lo pasuk pumi megirsa. I've never stopped thinking about Torah. If I was to sit there battle for a minute, yeah, then I'm sure I would be smitten with all these disgusting thoughts. So I'm just going to make sure that my mind is kulu occupied the whole time with Torah. And so he said, look, I'm a Benoni. Yeah, you're right. You could think that I was a tzaddik, yeah, but I'll tell you, I know I'm a Benoni. And the reason why I'm a Benoni, the reason why it looks, even internally looks like I'm a tzaddik is because I never stop with my divine service. So I never experience the fact that there's some kind of selfishness inside me. Okay? So the whole sefer is built on that. That Rabbah's hanocha, that he says he is a Benoni, but the efsharut, that he is a Benoni, is the whole inyan of time. Because if Rabbah was just basically lying, saying, look, I know I'm a tzaddik, yeah, I'm going to say I'm a Benoni out of my humility, yeah, then the entire sefer will crumble. The entire sefer that is the foundation of everything. So really it means that the Benoni's behavior is completely aligned with Ratzon Hashem. but he himself isn't completely aligned with Ratzon Hashem. But that's our work in this world. So now, the Tanya brings us an example of a tzaddik. The example of the tzaddik is David HaMelech. And he says an amazing thing. He says, She'ein lo yetzer hara, he doesn't have a yetzer hara, ki hago b'tainus, he killed him with tainus. He killed his yetzer hara with fasting, yeah? So, the way I always learned this was, David was a big Baal tainus. He used to do tainus all the time, yeah? And the din of a tainus, al pi Torah, is there has to be a Kabbalah mincha the day before. If a tainus yochid, if you don't take on a Kabbalah of a tainus mincha the day before, you're just not eating. You're not doing a tainus. So if you wake up in the morning and say, you know what, today I'm going to not eat, or I'll see how it goes. Let me try to not eat, and that's not a tainus. It might be a good thing. Yeah, you might have done some good stuff, but it's not a tainus. It's not an official halachic tainus. A halachic tainus demands a Kabbalah by mincha the day before. So you realize what tainus really is. The 4 precious words that we've been learning. What?
Actively thinking, and then doing it.
The four most precious English words that I know. Making and keeping promises. That's how you get shola over your yetzer hara. An amazing idea. When you think tainus, you just think fasting, but fasting can be, you can do a lot of tainesim and get more and more egoic in the tainus. You can't put yourself second to your word. You can even do that as well, but most people don't do that. But putting yourself second to your word, the magnificence of those 4 words, yeah, making and keeping promises, can't be overstated. Most people can't make a promise. Most people can't commit to anything. We've spoken about this in length, yeah, because if you commit to something and you don't follow through with it, then you betray yourself. That's called betrayal. Yeah, if you tell something to someone in confidence, and then they tell everyone, they betrayed you. How would you feel towards that person? Betrayal is like the most powerful emotions there are. To be betrayed can generate such sinah, such hatred. It's unbearable. It's imagine, we don't get betrayed very often, except by one person, by ourselves, all the time. But the problem with betraying yourself is that you end up in a relationship with yourself like somebody who betrayed you. Trauma, self-hatred. You end up hating yourself. You betray yourself. That this is just the mechanics how reality works. When you make a commitment and you don't keep it, yeah, you feel towards yourself like somebody who made a commitment to you and didn't keep it. That's how it is. So you can go through all the positive hype up in the world. Yeah? You can rub yourself on the back. You can tell yourself you're chelek elekai memal. You can tell yourself the Rebbeinu Shalom loves you so deeply with such a consuming love that you can't even imagine the most you love anybody in this world. Yeah, the Rebbeinu Shalom loves the biggest Russia much more than that. Imagine he loves you more than you can ever imagine, and you're just like, I say the example of what I say is it's like putting chocolate on one of those pellets from a urinal. Yeah, you can put more and more chocolate on it, yeah, but you're at the end of the day, you're not working with the right chomer. Yeah, there's no beginning, there's nothing doing if you can't commit and keep what you commit to. That's the beginning of Avodas Hashem, the way I understand it. The mamash, the beginning of Avodas Hashem. Yochap this, when I said this, I think this resonated so deeply that you made that app. I mentioned this in the women's share. Your wife mentioned it here. No? So I mentioned in the Women's Share what a godless it was. Yo's designing this app where you commit to stuff and you follow through, and the entry level, if I understood correctly, the most basic level is you don't actually commit to anything other than just turning on the app each day and like clicking a yes.
Just commit.
Just I committed to opening the app and going like that. And that's a godless sticker thing to do. And I've been plutzing for years trying to work out how to help people do this. Because
if you hate yourself, at least that's better than not hating yourself, because at least you're feeling guilty. And if you're feeling guilty, there's a chance maybe it's not.
I agree with you. But the problem is, that's a very important thing to say, thank you. This is exactly the problem, is that after enough broken promises to yourself, you stop realizing that you hate yourself. And you've fallen in, you're not there. You're not a person. You didn't even begin the game. At least, like when I make a promise and I don't keep it, I feel terrible at myself, yeah? A lot of people, well, they just stop making promises, Bichla. You ever try to invite people to a barbecue or something? Or some kind of Sudi, you know, how many times do people say, yeah, we'll see, you know, Bezrat Hashem, I'll tell you closer to the time, you know, why can't you commit? You know what I'm talking about, yeah?
We'll see means they're not coming.
What?
We'll see means they're not coming.
Oh well, yeah. Just why can't we? Or say I can't come, whatever. But people like it's hard to commit because people are people know that when you say something you don't do it. Unless you've really fallen very deeply. And I know people who have fallen very deeply into Klipa, and that doesn't by the way mean that they're raping and killing people at all. It just means that they've become so attached to self that they can't commit to anything. Literally, they'll say, "Look, let's see, we'll try, maybe, blineda, let's." They can't say yes. You know what I'm talking. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's and the beginning of everything is by saying yes, and that's how did David kill his Yetzer? Is through tinus. How did he do that? Tinus isn't that you're not eating food. Yeah, the tinus is that you are machnia yourself to your word. Right now, before you can machnia yourself to your word, if you can't humble yourself to your word, you are a god to yourself. You are God. If you can't humble yourself to your word, you didn't begin the whole thing. The beginning of the whole game is you humble yourself to your word, yeah? Once you can humble yourself to your word, yeah, and you appreciate there's something more than you, which is your word, now you're in a good position to appreciate that another person actually exists. That another person doesn't exist in context of me, that you actually have your own reality, yeah? You're a real being. Once I can appreciate that you're a real being, now there's even maybe a chazaka that I can appreciate that the Rebbeinu Shalom is a Metzias. If you can't appreciate the reality of another human being who's sitting in front of you, who you can touch and smell and talk to, yeah, and listen to, how on earth can you appreciate the Metzias of the invisible, silent Creator? It's dimyonis. That's why that's why Bein Adam L'Chaveroi is a prerequisite for Bein Adam L'Makom. If a person doesn't have Bein Adam L'Chaveroi, he can't have Bein Adam L'Makom. Not having Bein Adam L'Chaveroi means you don't appreciate that another person's a Metzias. I tread on you, I talk nasty to you, whatever, yeah? You're not really real. That's really what you're saying. If I really felt that you were real, I would treat you at least in the way that I would like to be treated, yeah? If it's hateful to yourself, that's the prerequisite of being a human being. Yeah, if I thought you were real, then I would for sure at least treat you like I would want to be treated. So if I'm not treating you in the way that I would want to be treated, then that's a gilui das that you're not actually a real person in my mind. You're not a reality, and that's really what a psychopath is called. At the ultimate level, a psychopath is a person like that story in Sandy Oaks School. You remember that thing? The Sandy Oaks? I think it was Sandy Oaks or something.
Kill the children.
Yeah, a guy walked into a kindergarten and killed a bunch of mamash, little toddler, little kids, load mamash.
Under 8 years old.
What?
Under 8, 9-year-old kids.
No, whatever it was.
Kids,
Imagine that.
babies.
But he was a true psychopath, meaning that to him they were just the same as little paper things, flicker paper. They weren't real. That's the ultimate level of a psychopath. And a psychopath, I always think of Ted Bundy in Machshamoy, is a person who says, not only will I mean, there's madrigas and madrigas. A good guy would say, well, I wouldn't put my pleasure over your pleasure. If my pleasure is going to affect you negatively, then I'll hold myself back. Like a good guy doesn't play his music loud at night. Yeah? Wake up the neighbours. A good guy doesn't do that, yeah? You have to have some kind of ra in you to be playing music loud at night. Yeah? Everyone agrees to that statement? What's the ra? The ra is you can't appreciate that other people are trying to sleep. They're not really real to you. But does that mean you'd go into their house and steal their money? No, of course not. Because they're a little bit real to you. Yeah? But the ultimate level of them not being real to me is like Ted Bundy in Machshamoy, where he would put people through pain. He would torture people for his own pleasure. That's the ultimate level of ra, where that person is just like a cup of coffee to me. Like the cup of coffee also probably doesn't want to be drunk, but I don't care. So that was like Ted Bundy. I'm sure that you don't want to be, raped and killed, but who cares? I don't care. And I want to rape and kill you, so I'm just going to do that. That's ra. So the beginning of the whole process of extracting yourself from ra is humbling yourself to something. And the first stage of that is your word. That's what we humble ourselves to. That's the beginning. Once you can humble yourself to your word, and when you say X, that's going to happen, now you're in a really good position to actually appreciate that person who's standing in front of you is a mitzias, is a manda'ama, is a reality. And if you go really far with that, like people, like we said, Gandhi and Stephen Covey, yeah, who I think about when I say Shalosh Sani Goy, yeah, not Elon Musk and Donald Trump, yeah, Gandhi and Covey, is that these are people who thought so deeply into the inyan of how real a person is that they actually got to the madrega where they appreciated that you were more real than I am. But that's still human. That's just a really worked out human being. That's a really worked out human being. It's expected of a human being to get to the place where you're at least as real as I am. That's the laich sani lechaverecha lo yisaved. That's expected. You want to go further and actually feel that everybody else is more real than you, not in a shmatadika way, but in a responsible way. I'm responsible for your well-being. And in fact, your well-being is more important to me than my well-being. Yeah? Now that's a really worked out human being. So now what's a Jew?
What does that mean? Someone is more real than me. What does that mean?
That your comfort is more important to me than my own comfort. Your pleasure is more important to me. This is really it. Your pleasure is more important to me than my own pleasure. And that's played out most powerfully in marriage.
How is that expressed without being a shmata?
It's the opposite of being a shmata. Your wife has now done this thing wrong for the third time. Yeah.
Now?
I know you're not married, so I'm sorry, but this is a good example that pops into mind, yeah? That the person's wife has now done this thing. She overspent on the credit card, yeah? This is the third time she's done it now. And you went into Minas, and because you went into Minas now, the thing got cancelled, the internet got cancelled, and all of a sudden you're like in real trouble, yeah? She didn't do that on purpose, she didn't want to screw you up, yeah? But you got burnt badly now. Yeah, now what would your pleasure be? We don't have to fill in the blank, yeah? We know what our pleasure would be at this point, yeah? But we realise that our wife made a mistake. She didn't try to do something bad. She just didn't think about it, and she's not on top of the money and whatever, and she overspent. It caused me a big problem. My pleasure right now is to scream and shout and to bang the door and to tell her that she's this and that, yeah? But she's more real to me. Meaning, like, I'm gonna contain myself, and maybe I'll go swimming, or I'll call out my friend and shout at him, or I'll do something else to exercise that demon that's now in me. Yeah, which you probably need to. Yeah, but she's more real to me than I am. You with me? Doesn't mean you're a schmutter. You understand what I'm saying? It has to be understood in context as well. Like, do you have to stand up for the guy on the bus? Like I give the example, yeah? I was saying to somebody this morning that my son tried to get together tickets to Meron. And he's a powerful boy. He can he gets crazy things done. Like, his Ratzon is like, he's the only, like, I can trump all of the Ratzonis in my family, yeah, all together, except for him. His Ratzon trumps my Ratzon. Yeah. So Baruch Hashem is a good boy, so he's machni himself to me. But if he wants something and it's negative what I want, and he'll get it, it'll work out. So Baruch Hashem, he tried to get tickets to actually go to the Tzion in the car, yeah, in Meron, and it didn't work out. Baruch Hashem. And I was saying to my friend, it's much better for him that it didn't work out. Much better for him. Yeah, that it's better when things don't work out for you. It's usually better. What's the word that we call when something doesn't work out the way you want it to work out? What's the word? What do you feel? Disappointed, or even better, disillusioned. Meaning you got the illusion taken away from you that things need to go according to the way you want them to go. I love that. You're disillusioned because it didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out. That's great. What's the illusion? The illusion is yourself, that you're something separate from reality. That's the illusion. So when things don't go right, yeah, then that's very good. But what I was trying to say is that I have a big schus. I'm saying this is how it works. The Rebbe helps you with this all the time. In the minyan that I daven at, I've been davening there for 10 years plus. And over the past year, I basically ended up with a makom kavua. Until then, I used to have a general area, but never a makom kavua, until I found this place which worked out, and I sit there. There's another guy that I know, who I'm friends with, who he comes basically every Wednesday, but not every Wednesday, most Wednesdays. And he used to sit in this place, yeah? I'm there every day. I'm there 6 days a week, basically without fail. It's my makom kavua. People would tell people to move out of the way. This guy, I put my book where he comes in, and I let him, I kind of give him my place, yeah? That is, see, it's a little bit difficult for me because he doesn't always turn up, yeah, on the Wednesday. And occasionally he'll turn up on a different day. And I'll pick up my stuff and I'll let him sit there. And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He needs that from the childhood he had and stuff like that. Yeah, he really needs a makom kavua, and that's like a big schus for me. Do you realise? Like standing up for somebody on the bus, you could say, "Yeah, why should I stand up for this guy?" Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about a pregnant woman. Yeah, we're talking about another guy. Yeah, we're not talking about an old person. There's some guy standing up, and you sitting down. Yeah. And you're like, so I can stand up right now. I don't really need to sit down. Yeah, why not stand up and let him sit down? You're like, why would I do that? What's he there? But when we're playing the game, you understand? It's like we've spoken about over and over, the idea of taking one tissue. Yeah, you need maybe 2 or 3 tissues. But who are you to take more than one tissue? You say to yourself, as you're about to take three, not 2, what are they called?
Paper towels.
Paper towels. You're about to take 3 paper towels to dry your hands. And you say to yourself, who am I to use up all these resources? I can get away with 1 towel. I use that. It's not perfect. It's okay. 1 towel, throw away. You just went up. You just made it. You just elevated yourself. You just made the chances of you being oimed that Nasai when your wife overspends on a credit card. You just increased the chances.
I also think selflessness can be a form of ge'ava also sometimes.
That's not the selflessness that I'm talking about. The selflessness I'm talking about means you're not seeing yourself as something separate from the big picture. Calling yourself a shmata and saying, well, who am I? That's one of the most selfish things you can do. Who am I? Like, well, who am I to do this? Who am I to say that? Who am I? You're right, you are nothing, yeah? But you have an achwais to say something. This guy is misbehaving. Stand up and set him straight. You have a mitzvah to do that.
Also, let's get back to the bus message.
Let's get back to what?
To the bus, because that's a simple example.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're on the bus and your feet really hurt. You've been
So
exercising.
You don't stand.
It has to. Exactly what I just said. You can stand. I'm just giving you a way of thinking. It's just a way of thinking. It's like if I can let a guy go in the car, yeah. You see people. You see it's a disgusting thing to see when a guy's trying to cut in and the other guy won't let him go. You've seen it, yeah. It's like ugh, that's revolting. Let the guy go. Let the guy go. That's playing the game. You're not a friar. It's so crazy. You are a friar. Lashon fry from free. That's chayrus. That's mamash chayrus. That is mamash chayrus. And you get to the point where you're just concerned with other people more than you're concerned with yourself. And that's not called being a friar. That's called being a tzaddik. You're just not particularly concerned about my matzav. But then again, so now let's not sleep. Why are you sleeping? You could be working for everybody 24/6 as opposed to, 18/6. Stop sleeping. Yeah, that would be the next stage. No, because if you don't sleep, then you're going to affect how helpful you are to everybody else. So it comes out that you have to take care of yourself in the most optimal way, because otherwise you'll be compromising how helpful you can be. If you're not for yourself, exactly, who's going to take control of this? Is what we're talking about. Im ein ani mili. If the ayin is to me, if the ayin, you can drush it however you want. You can, if you want to, you can go through Torah. This is what Hashem did for us with the Torah, and in this generation as well. Is you want to believe anything, you can believe whatever you want. And you can type it into the AI, and he'll bring you makoros for whatever you want to believe. Anything. Yeah? Want to prove Yoshki's Mashiach? Type it into the AI, he'll bring you gematrias and psukim and chazals, and you want anything, yeah? We're in this privileged position. It wasn't like that in the old days. Yeah? Only a big Talmud Chacham could pervert the Torah. Yeah, now it's in the hands of every Am Haaretz to pervert the Torah in any way he wants. Yeah? So now Hashem's seeing who we really are. Yeah, but this is the avoid of Yiddishkeit that I've understood it. And now it's hard to hear. I understand that it's very hard to hear from the world that we come from, but this is the avoid of Yiddishkeit. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it's about putting yourself second to another person. That's a tool to help you stop taking yourself so seriously. Let's plug it in. So now you stood up for the guy on the bus. Yeah, you're sitting there. You see the guy looks a bit tired. Yeah, he's younger than you, but you can see his mama he's holding 2 bags of shopping. Yeah, you're not tired, and you're like, look, mate, take a seat. Yeah, he sits down. Okay, now you go back to your office. Yeah, you turn on the computer, and all of a sudden something pops up. Yeah, that you shouldn't look at, and you're like moving the mouse over. You're about to click on this thing that you know is mama's asa. And you turn around to yourself and you said, you know what? So what that I want to look at this? Just like I said to myself, so what that I want to sit down? You give yourself koyach to be omed the nisyonis, you understand? It's pashat scary. You know why it's so scary? Because it's not a quick fix like what everyone's telling us. The quick fix is you do this meditation. Yeah, sit there for half an hour with your thing and do this and whatever, and you're going to become a big tzaddik. Yeah, or even come to my retreat for 5 days and you'll be a big tzaddik. Or just say this every day and you'll be a big tzaddik. Or sit with your therapist for an hour a day and you'll be a big tzaddik. Yeah, no. Pull yourself together and start saying no to yourself on a level that you can say no to yourself at. And you'll see very quickly, yeah, like we said, in the way that you want to go, he's going to lead you in that way. So start on a very small level. Like I said, the one thing I said, yeah, I know you love that idea, is take 1 paper towel instead of 4, even instead of 2. Is it enough? My hands are a little bit wet. I'll be all right though. You just became a little bit more nichlal in reality. And that means when that Avera pops up, or when your wife says that thing, or when you need to do this or that, yeah, you're a little more powerful, and you can you'll be able to.
There seems to be disconnect. There's a better word, but that's what I'm thinking of right now. Between the way you are explaining the way we should look at the world in a spiritual way, right? In a selfless way. But the human world, okay,
we're not talking about the human world. We're talking about the Jewish world.
Said, okay, the Cheretz, okay, seems to look at it exactly the opposite. Like, the more you gain, the more,
The golden rule. I scratch your back, you scratch my
yes,
back. That's the Amoritz does like that. The Amoritz says, Shalach Shali, but Shali Shalach. That's the rule of the Amoritz. That's the rule of humanity. That is the rule of humanity. We're talking about Midas Chasidus. We're talking about we're trying that. This is the avoider. But if you want to do this, believe me, don't worry. Gandhi and Covey also did what we're talking about. Yeah, it's not such a madrega to take one towel. It's not such a madrega to let a guy sit on your. Maybe to let another guy your age sit in a spot where you're sitting because he looks a little tired. That might be a madrega. Right? We're just giving examples. But don't think that this is such a high. This isn't such a high thing. This is available to human beings as well. I'm talking about it latoelis. It's everybody. It's just pasha. Yeah. It's like the most passionate thing in the world, what I'm saying. Yeah? It just makes absolute sense. It's a bit annoying to hear, but it makes just clear sense.
The reason, like for me, I'm the opposite. I usually try to do the right thing. I usually try to be the one who gets up and on the bus and lets the other guy sit, okay? But I've noticed in the past few years that this behavior has hurt me.
So
so that's what I'm trying to
I don't want to cut you off, but I've got to finish on time, but I understand what you're saying. And there's a big difference between wanting to be the guy who stands up for the person on the bus and thinking about the other guy. An infinite difference.
I'm not sure I understand.
It's the difference between being a good husband, wanting to be a good husband, and just being miskasher to your wife. It's the difference between wanting to be an Oved Hashem and wanting Hashem to be served. It's an infinite difference. In fact, one's selfish and one's selfless. Meaning, it's the difference between the child who wants to bring his father the slippers and the child who wants his father to have the slippers. Cole's one, I want to be the one who brings my father the slippers. I'm just connected to myself. So when my brother brings in the slippers, that actually hurts me. If I can move my perspective, so when every time I bring in the slippers, I become more real. It's the opposite. You understand? It's clear. It's very clear. Yeah. So when I'm standing up for the guy on the bus, it's not because I want to be the good guy. I want to be the guy who's standing. Look at everybody else. No one's standing up. Yeah. There's a pregnant woman here. Look at all you guys. Stand up. Yeah. You just became more. You just shot yourself in the foot. Whereas you look at everyone sitting in the chair, yeah, don't look at them. That's the best option. Don't look at anyone sitting in the chair. You look at the woman and you think, wow, you could redo with a seat, couldn't you? Take a seat. And then you sit. She sits down and you stand up. What?
Don't even look at yourself.
That's the point. That's the avoider. The avoider is, I want to appreciate you. Not that I'm doing you a toiva, that you need a toiva. And if I couldn't do it, then somebody else would do it. It's not about me bringing my father the slippers. It's about my father having the slippers. It's not about me giving you my chair. It's about you having the chair. It's two opposite avoiders. That's why you went down and down with that thinking. That's called becoming a shmata and becoming more and more self-involved. You're the martyr. It's not about being a martyr. It's about the other person. You with me? It's clear. It takes a lot of these are big ideas we're talking about. Yeah, we're talking very big ideas. So I just want to move on. So that is the ikka. The way I understand that is the ikka advice in avodas Hashem. Yeah, to kill your Yetzer Hara, how? With tinus, not by not eating food, but taking kabbalas on at mincha and holding to them, making promises and keeping them. Everybody feels a little uncomfortable right now.
Taking a Kabbalah out of
what?
What do you mean by taking a Kabbalah?
Making a promise to yourself. That doesn't mean taking on chumras. By the way, we're not talking about taking on chumras bichlal. Yeah, not at all. Yeah, a chumra is a completely different thing. If I say it very quickly because this is a big confusion. I'm really, when I'm talking about taking on Kabbalahs, I come up exclusively mean learning projects. Take on things to learn, yeah? And good behavior you should be doing anyway. But let's say, taking on Chumras, like for example, someone who decides that he's not going to carry in an Eruv in Yerushalayim, when there's really no decent reason. It's if you, like, I carry in an Eruv, yeah, in Yerushalayim, no question. In LA, yeah, I don't carry in an Eruv. I don't tell anyone. And if I had to, I would. But if I can get away without having anything in my pockets, I won't care, because the Eruv in LA is different to the Eruv in Yerushalayim. If you've learned the sugyas of Eruv, yeah, you'll know that in Yerushalayim it's almost impossible. You're caught by like 3 different Eruvim wherever you are. Yeah, there's even if you would have to have such bad luck, yeah, to be caught over in the Isra of Hoitzah, that in my mind is not that's like a 1 in 100,000. Yeah, I don't play with those kinds of odds. Now in LA, maybe the chances are, let's say, 1 in 50. Which is still very low odds, yeah. But when you're dealing with something life and death, yeah, 1 in 50 that's odds that I don't play with. If it's life and death, which Hotzah is, yeah, it's a schema. So I don't play with those odds. A chumrah, taking on a chumrah in Torah, is to do with what kind of a person you are. For example, my father-in-law will check that he locked the front door, multiple times. Sometimes he's a very, very safe. Very not safe person.
Vigilant, conscientious.
No. He's very not safe. How do you say it? What's the word?
Security oriented.
Paranoid.
No.
OCD.
Yeah, no.
Vigilant.
Someone who loves his son-in-law.
He just wants to make sure he's a very. I've forgotten. There's a very good. It's not a negative thing. That's a certain kind of person. Yeah. Cautious, thank you, that was the word. He's a very cautious person, yeah? His investments are also like that. He only invests in very, very low risk, low return things. That's who he is. So he doesn't gamble with odds, yeah? So he would remind me be a person who takes on chumras. You understand? It's a din on who you are. It's not like a miler to take on a chumrah. If you think there's a chashash that this is an issue, then why are you doing it? You understand? Chumras aren't something you take on, it's to do with your personality. So we're not talking about taking on Kabbalahs to be more machmir and stuff. You with me? That's a very important point, because that's something my friend Eliezer Goldschmidt said in the name of the Tona Rebbe, I think. He said machmir means to be machmir. Mir in Yiddish is me, to be mach myself, to make myself more. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So when I'm talking about Kabbalahs, the most, there's also fitness, things to do with your health and stuff like that. They're all good things to do. I'm talking primarily about learning projects. Committing to a learning project and mamash coming through with it, yeah, that explosion, that propels you into what?
Is to commit to withhold from something.
That's very difficult. Again, there's also the beginning stage is to commit to doing a positive act that is doable, but that's not really pathetic. And not so, or if it is really pathetic, don't just do that. Like I said, I've got this friend he took on to make his bed, yeah, like about 6 years ago or something, and that's all he still does. And he uses that as an excuse to not do anything else. Look, I make my bed. That's what I do every morning. I make my bed. If you need to do that, like for a month, yeah, okay. But now let's move. Let's keep moving. Okay, let's take a slightly bigger bite. Yeah. So that's what we learn from David Ameth, the Ikka thing. That's one of the most important things that I know in Yiddishkeit is if you wanna serve the Boine Shalom, it begins with those 4 words: making and keeping promises. I can't stress that enough. Making and keeping promises. Yeah. Okay.
And when you say that, you're specifically referring to learning projects, right? That's what you're
about what?
And that you're referring to using that for learning projects.
Well, no, but Ikka, that's a very good place to start. But there's like everything, like being on time. We said committing to read a book, or to committing to not do something is much more difficult. Like that's for the more advanced stages. That's when you get to like blue belt, brown belt level. Yeah, but when you're a white belt, the first stage is take on something, and everyone's got something they know they should be doing that they could do. They're just lazy and annoying. Take it on, yeah, and commit to it like you're holding on to the edge of a cliff. And if you were to let go, you'll mamash die. Because it's life or death. It's mamash life or death. Everybody knows the blank that's going through their head right now, which they've been putting off for the past, could be years, yeah? So stop putting it off, take it on, and make sure that you come through for yourself. And you'll be going up on this upward current, and before you know it, you'll be bringing other people up with you, B'ezrat Hashem. We're going to say this quickly, that the Rebbe now goes into speaking about the Nefesh Bahamis of the Jew, the human aspect of the Jew. The definition of the Jew, the way that I've received from my Rebbe, is a human being who has a neshama. Okay? The definition of Goy is a human being. We are a human being with a neshama, we'll call it a nefesh l'kis, call it whatever you want. Yeah, but you are a human being with a nefesh achiyunis or a nefesh bahamis. That's the definition of a human being. So to speak, an animal that has a nefesh maskeles or a nefesh achiyunis, a nefesh bahamis, that is able to have, that has intellect. And a Jew is that creature that also has a nefesh l'kis. So we've got two avoiders. We have to be human and we have to be Jewish. You can't be Jewish without being human. You can be human without being Jewish, though. Yeah, but we have two avoiders. But the difference between the humanity of a Yid and the humanity of a human is actually very different. And the difference is, this is I was so grateful that Hashem gave me this analogy. As we've said many times, the analogy is the difference between a kosher piece of meat and a treif piece of meat. What's the difference in a kosher piece of meat and a treif piece of meat?
Salt.
Price, yeah. They look the same, they smell the same, they taste the same, they weigh the same. They're mamash the same. The difference is one's kosher, one's treif. That one came from an avela, or that one got a drop of milk touched to it, or that one got cooked in an oven with milk, and that one didn't, and they're exactly the same. That's how you have to understand the difference between a Yid and a Goy.
Does that take into account the difference that a guy's nefesh be'amas comes from Gimel Klipas?
Yes. That's the expression of what I just said. That's the technical way of saying what I just said. I just clothed it up. A piece of meat that comes from Klipas Tameas is called Asa, treif. A piece of meat that comes from Klipas Noiga is called Mutter, kosher. See, I just use that technical language. See, when you say, the nefesh of Bahamis of a goy comes from the Gimel Klipas Tameas, it's kulura, you've got this idea of this guy with an axe, like killing people and raping and murdering and stealing and v'chule, yeah? And I'm from Klipas Noiga, yesh toiv, and I can appreciate the metzias of another person. It's like, you've already now, that's racist. It's stupid. It's not racist, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because now all you need to be Jewish is to stop raping, killing and stealing, and you're a good Jew. No.
That's if you have
if your definition of a goy, if your definition of a
good guy is to not rape and steal.
No, because that's the definition of a goy. A goy, according to how the Pashut way of people think, a goy is just a person who rapes and kills and steals. Yeah, that's ridiculous. A goy is a human being. A goy also is not allowed to rape and steal. So, but when that's your definition of a goy, no, that's what I said. When I say Lo Sani Goy, I think about Stephen Covey and Mahatma Gandhi. You know that Mahatma Gandhi did a Tainus Dibor every Sunday? He used to fast. Like you want to hear a funny thing? I took on this year, it sounds like I'm pumping myself up, but listen to this, yeah? I took on to do a bunch of Tanaisim, yeah? Earlier this year. And on the second Thursday, I was doing Bahab like that, yeah? On the second Thursday, so I did the first Monday, then the second Thursday, it's not so difficult for me to do Tainus, yeah? I was telling this to Toiles. An Arab was fixing up our bathroom, yeah, putting in a new shower door, yeah. It was about 5:00 in the afternoon, yeah. And he's doing it. I said, "Can I bring you a glass of water?" He's like, "No, sorry." I said, "No, let me bring you a glass of water, please. Do you want Coke or you want water, or something sweet or water?" He's like, "No, sorry." I said, "You're working at me." I was bugging him. He said, "I'm fasting." I said, what do you mean you're fasting? He says, no, I fast every Monday and Thursday. I'm like, what? It's like Ramadan? He's like, no, I just fast every Monday and Thursday. Like, what? Like your life? He's like, yeah, I've been doing it for years. I just fast every Monday and Thursday until Shkia.
Pop.
Wow.
That
That was so helpful. So I said to him at 6 o'clock, just to make sure that he was sincere, I was clear, but someone said to him, maybe he was just trying to didn't want to eat your food. At 6 o'clock, when it was Shkia, I came to him, I said, by the way, it's Shkia, and he drank my water. Yeah, real deal, yeah? Well, that's a big thing to do a tinus. You're just so scared of pushing yourself. You're so soft. We're all so soft, we can't imagine these things, yeah? You could do, I say again and again, yeah? These people, but these heroes that we hear of from the Holocaust, yeah? These people who walked for miles on a broken leg and carried, the dead body of, like the story of your grandfather, yeah? He carried your great-grandfather's... Who knows what we would have done in that situation? We've never been in these situations. We're in this soft world. Forget carrying the body of our father. Yeah, we don't even, imagine if the AC wasn't working. Everyone would be like oi, what am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? How do you know what you can do? How do you know? We're just so soft. It's passionate, crazy. And people talk about burning out, yeah? I'll tell you what, the real concern is not burning out, it's being snuffed out. That's the real, you know what snuffed out means? When you light a fire, and like that one's about to snuff out. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're like, no, and then whoop, it goes. That's the real danger. Burning out, yeah? Burn out once every month or so. Yeah? Oh. So now we can begin. Just in time. We're talking about pushing yourself, yo. We're talking about the danger. The real danger is being snuffed out, not being burned out. To burn out once a month is a very healthy thing to do. Yeah, you're burning out. Sit down, eat some cake, watch a video. Yeah, do something stupid.
You have to work to burn out.
Yeah, exactly. You should burn out. If you're not burning out, there's something wrong. There's something not right. You're not working on all cylinders. So that is, I can't stress that enough, to understand that the difference between your humanity and the humanity of a non-Jew, yeah, is almost indistinguishable. In fact, you could say it's indistinguishable. It's the difference between a kosher piece of meat and a treif piece of meat. The difference is that a kosher piece of meat can be eaten and elevated. A treif piece of meat can't be eaten and elevated. That's it. They look the same, they taste the same, they smell the same, yeah? So the avoider of what is the difference between the humanity of a Yid and the humanity of the Ummah Ha'olam is the fact that naturally, and he kind of encodes it here, the Rebbe, but naturally, you remember what are the three natural qualities of a Jew? It says in the Gemara. Baishanim, Rachmanim, Ugoyim and Chasadim, yeah? Think about those three. What's the tzad shava between those three qualities? We are embarrassed. It's not a good word for it. Baishanim, we are merciful and we're kind. Huh?
Others.
Yeah, that is an innate, natural ability to appreciate the reality of another human being. That's the difference between, for all intents and purposes, the difference between a Yid and a Goy is a natural ability to appreciate the reality of another, whereas by a non-Jew, he has to do that. He has to work on that. We should naturally, now don't get me wrong, we've been amongst the Ummah Ha'olam for a long time, we've been in Galus for a long time, and we've picked up what's called a Tevesheni, where we might need to be working on that. But a textbook Jew, a factory-installed Yid, has Bushas, Rachmanas, and he's a Goyim Chassid. I just appreciate that you're a Metzias. So what's the avoider of the Yid? If I can appreciate that you're a reality, now the avoider of the Yid is to appreciate that he is Baruch as a reality. Remember we said it's a prerequisite. If another human being isn't real to you, if every human being is just a detail in your reality, what then you think you're standing there crying out to God? Yeah, you think you're crying out to God? Your God is a little thing in your pocket that you pull out when you need something. And that doesn't mean you need like stuff. It means you might need to feel connected, or you might need to feel meaning, or you might need to even feel, in awe. It's about you. He's your pocket God. Yeah. If you can't appreciate that another human being is a Metzias, then you're living, all your tefillahs and everything is mamash dimyonis. Mamash dimyonis. Pasha. It's just the most sensible thing you could ever say, yeah? So the avodah of the Yehudi is coming to appreciate that I exist as a detail in his reality. And the avodah of the non-Jew in this world is to appreciate that I exist in a detail of your reality. That's the Madrega of Kovi and Gandhi, where they were out there working for the people because they saw people as more real than they. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming, yeah. Only Hashem knows what was going on in their heart, yeah. But I'm assuming that they saw people as more real than themselves, and therefore but that's called being human. Yeah, that's taken for granted by us, and that's what the Rebbe says. It's so easy to understand this so backward. It says by the Ovdei Gululim, Ein lehem toiv klal. What's it say? She'ein behem toiv klal. They don't have in them any good. So now the Pasha Pshat is they're out there, having znus with sheep. That's what we're thinking. It doesn't mean that bichlal. It means that the good that they're doing is predicated on being good as opposed to on the other. But even they can get out of that if they work hard enough. That's what it means. Ein behem toiv klal. Doesn't mean that there's some kind of subspecies, chas v'shalom. That's the most ridiculous mistake that we're making in this generation. Maybe that we've ever made, yeah?
But should we treat them differently because of it?
Should we what?
Should we treat them differently?
I mean, it depends how you treat them. They're human beings. You have a responsibility to human beings. Absolutely. There's Kabbalah Brias as well. It depends how you're treating them. A non-Jew should be treated with absolute respect. With utter respect. So you have a mitzvah to break Shabbos to save the life of another Jew, yeah? Why? Why does the Gemara say? What? Because he's going to be shomer more Shabbosim. That's what the Gemara says, yeah? So what's more choshev? His life or Shabbos? Shabbos. And then you have a chiyuv to break Shabbos to save the life of a non-Jew. Why? Darkei Shalom. Because Shalom is more choshev than Shabbos. So Shabbos is more choshev than Shabbos, and Shalom is more choshev than Shabbos. Yes, yeah. A Jew gets skila for breaking Shabbos. So what's more choshev? Shabbos or Yid? L'chayra Shabbos. A goy gets skila for breaking Shabbos.
For keeping Shabbos.
For keeping Shabbos. It's this chila. Look, we have to be separate from them. We're an Am Kadosh. Yeah, you have to be separate from them, and you can't not. If you're shomer halacha, you can't not be separate from them. You can't not. You're not allowed to eat their food. You're not allowed to drink their wine. They're not allowed to touch your wine. Go and have a nice time at a club with your goyish friends. Yeah, you can't do that. The way halacha is set up is that you cannot basically be. You can be friendly with them, but you can't particularly be friends with them. You just can't. If you're shomer halacha, that's just the way halacha is set up. Because I'm better than you. Look, I'm a yid. You're human. We've got different places in reality. You've got to do this. I've got to do that. And part of being an Am Kadosh means that I'm separate from you. There's no elitism here. Bichlal. There's the din of a head and a goof. That's really the moshel. Etzem and Shem.
What about working with them?
What?
What about working with them?
If you have to work with them, you work with them. The point is that you can't really socialise with them. You just can't do that particularly. It's difficult to do that, yeah? Not you can't, but it's kind of difficult, yeah? Then they can't come around to your house for Yom Tov. Yeah, they can come around to your house for Shabbos. But what I'm trying to do is show you.
They can't come from you.
You're not really allowed to have.
That's if you're a halacha. You're talking if you're a halacha Jew. I have actually a crazy story. My friend was here for.
Speak louder so they can hear you.
My friend was here for a few days in Israel for a wedding, and he's living in Northern California, completely off the path. Hasn't been religious since he's 10 years old.
Okay.
And he was telling me he's here so do a week here, and he was telling me on the day before he left how even how he's a big awakening for him being here and coming to Israel. He hasn't been there since a teenager, and made him realize how far he is over there. And he realized that as much as he's living there, he has a non-Jewish girlfriend, everything, works in a non-kosher restaurant, like a top chef, and lives the life over there on a ski resort, real mamish goyish life. He says he always feels like he doesn't fit in. He doesn't fit in. He goes out with them, and even sometimes with the Goyim, when they find out he's Jewish, they go, "How did you end up here? What are you doing here? You can't eat this." To him, they tell him.
Yeah. I had a friend when we were kids.
It's crazy. So you're talking about it from a halachic perspective, even if halacha is the last thing in the world that you're caring about.
Wow, that's interesting.
Mamish.
So, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but the point of what we're trying to leave on here is to understand that we have an avoider of being human, which is almost maybe exactly the same as the avoider of regular human beings. They have an avoider, we have an avoider. But we have a whole different Metzias because we have also a Neshama. That's what's being called an Ish Yisrael. So that's how the Rebbe ends off. The first thing that he tells you is basically, the last thing he tells you in the first chapter, meaning if anyone's going to read this book, they're going to at least read the first chapter, is he's showing you that Mitzad Echad, you're basically saying you're extremely different to the Umos Ha'olam, but in the way that I explained that, in that the difference is, although it's insane and infinite, it's incredibly subtle. So that's the first parak of Tanya B'ezrat Hashem.
Very nice.
Shkoyach.